I've got something extra special to share with you guys. It's a Nixie clock kit that I've been wanting for over a decade, and I finally found one at a actually very reasonable price. This is the Big Time Mark II, and it's called that because it's big and it tells the time. I couldn't find any videos of this clock on YouTube, and there's definitely no unboxing videos of it, so I figured I should do one since this is probably one of the last, if not the last, surviving unbuilt kits. This kit was pretty expensive when new, and I'm sure most of them have been put together in the time since then. So I'm looking forward to building this kit myself. As much as it would be nice to save this in unbuilt condition, I also want to use it, so I'm going to eventually put it together. On top is a DVD with the manual. I think the previous owner put that in here, along with this constructor's guide. It's quite a detailed manual, much more so than a lot of other kits. I'm not going to really go through this on camera. I believe it's still easily available online. You could look at it yourself if you wanted to. Now let's get into the kit itself. There's a pair of cloth gloves in here for handling the polished case. And the owner's guide, which has not been opened yet. It says serial number Big 2/023. I don't think very many of these kits were made, so it's quite rare. And it's dated 11/12/2008. Here we've got a cable. I'm not exactly sure what that's for yet. Here's the temperature probe. That'll hopefully hold the lid open. Here's the GPS receiver. It's a Fortuna receiver. So this is a radio controlled clock. Here's a Philips universal remote control with batteries that have unfortunately exploded and leaked in there a bit. At least they're not inside the remote. That mess should clean up, though it did damage the little manual. Here's the power adapter for the clock. I might substitute my own. This looks like a pretty cheap one actually, which is a little surprising. It's a 1 amp switching wall adapter. Doesn't feel super cheap, but it doesn't feel high quality either. It's looking like a no brand one. Here's the first bag of parts. And this box contains the tubes for the clock. As you can see, it's never been opened. It's marked with the date code of the tubes, 0184, and that they were tested. The IN-18 tube was the largest Nixie tube that was produced in the Soviet Union. I suppose I don't really need to open this, but at the same time, these tubes are quite expensive, and I kind of want to make sure that they're actually in there and still in good shape. They'll be pricey to replace if there's something wrong with them. So here goes. And there's two of them. They look new old stock to me. One way you can get an estimate of how many hours have been put on an IN-18 tube is to look at these little windows here in the anode mesh. On a tube that's seen a lot of use, you'll see some silvering of the glass in front of these windows. That's sputtering from the cathodes. These are crystal clear, so this tube has probably never been used other than, you know, testing. And I can see the other four are neatly tucked away as well. I don't see any reason to expect they would have broken, so I'm going to leave them be for now. That's everything in the box, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. You can see a lot of attention to detail was put into packing everything. That's nice to see. Most kits just have everything just kind of slapped in the box, and the seller of this one really took the time to make sure everything's packed securely. This is the printed circuit board for the clock. I'm expecting it to be high quality, and it is. Look at that. Gold plated and nice heavy thickness. I don't think I've ever seen gold plating in a modern kit before. That's really next level. One main feature of this clock over other ones from the same time period is that it was direct drive and used modern high voltage driver chips. You can see the locations where the sockets for them would go. And there's a helpful warning to put the Nixie sockets into the other side. It'd be really unfortunate to solder all those socket pins on the wrong side and then have to try and remove them from this board. I can see that a few components have already been soldered. Looks like all the surface mount ones, including the microcontroller and the DS3231 real-time clock, and a few miscellaneous parts including the LEDs. I usually turn those off on Nixie clocks. I let the tubes kind of show themselves off. I don't really think LED underlighting adds much to a Nixie clock. That's just my personal preference though. Let's take a look at that beautiful case. It's one of the main things that attracted me to this clock originally. The lovely polished machined case. That's something that separates the cheap kits from the nice ones. Look at that. Beautiful. It's actually polished to less of a mirror finish than I was expecting. It's polished to a close to mirror finish, but not all the way there. I'll admit that's actually a bit surprising. You can see there's some dings in it even actually. That's kind of unfortunate really. I expected it to be a little bit more highly polished. You can see there's some actually pretty solid scratches in the surface there. That's a bit of a disappointment. I think what I'm going to do with this, in light of that, is give this a brushed finish. I believe it was also available in a brushed finish, and honestly that generally looks pretty nice. And it doesn't, you know, get all covered in fingerprints so quickly. It feels like this is made of aluminum, not steel. That's a little bit harder to bring to a high polish. The circuit board and tubes and all that are easily removable from this thing when it's assembled, so I can decide to give it a brush finish or polish it at a later date. This looks like an insulator to go in here to keep any components from shorting out on the metal case there. I might have to recut some of these holes myself. Look at that. It's actually not super well cut. It's like a pretty big section overlapping here. I don't think the tube will fit through that. Not a big deal though. At least this fits nicely. This is the bottom cover. Probably goes like this. Be my guess. Yep. Well, let's dig into the components a little bit. I don't want this video to get too long, but I do want to take a look at this. So there are those high voltage driver ICs. I think these aren't made anymore, these particular ones. Here's the FET for the high voltage supply, and a supercapacitor that serves as essentially a battery backup for the clock. Some stickers for the back. Some case hardware. See, it has rubber feet to go on the bottom. Good. Would have added them if they hadn't been included. Here's the big inductor for the high voltage supply, and some neon bulbs for the colon separators, and I believe AM/PM indicator. There's a socket for that cable we saw earlier. Still not sure what that plugs into. Here's the sockets for the high voltage driver, the beeper for the alarm. There's a relay here, not sure what that's for yet. I'll see when I dig into the manual. Got some resistors, nothing exciting there. Some capacitors. Huh. I think I'll be supplying my own. These are actually surprisingly off-brand ones. They say forever on them. Alas, electrolytic capacitors don't last forever, especially the cheapies. Well, I guess that's about it then. These are just resistors. Here's the socket pins. People used to call these things Mouser pins, but they're just socket pins you can buy from Mouser.com. They don't make them. Alright, I guess that's about it then. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll of course do another video on this thing once it's all built.